Joe from Tuppigs, and we're here with Jesse Blaze Snider, the
Hi.
writer of Muppet Snow White. So, Jesse, how you liking Comic-Con?
Oh, it's great, man. It's get bigger and bigger and bigger every year, and they seem to have finally barely caught up to the growth of the con. For a few years, it was like, oh man, we didn't think it was going to be this big, and the next year, oh man, we didn't think it was going to be this big, you know. So now they're finally like, oh man, we thought it might be this big, but it looks like it's even bigger. So they're getting close. It's finally starting to get a little bit more organized, but it's cool, man. Lots of little kids today signing lots of books.
Cool. So, are you? I know you're working on Toy Story now, and a lot of people probably recognize you from that. Are you getting a lot of people coming up to you asking you to sign Muppet Snow White as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of Muppet fans here. A lot of people who just, you know, it's unfortunate. You know, a lot of people don't hear about it. You know, in the mainstream, you know, you hear about it if you're in the comics, but if you're not, it's like they do Muppet comics. You know, so there's lots of people come up and like, you did this? And I'm like, I want this. You know, so you get to turn people onto it at these cons. You get an opportunity to. You know, show people who don't usually get turned on to that, don't go into a comic shop on a regular basis and see your work. So it's cool, and it's so nice that the whole series is done, so people can get the whole book and you know, read the whole story.
So what has the response been? Has it been mostly positive, both from Boom and from the fans, everything?
Yeah, I mean it's been pretty amazing. You know, it was a dream for me to do it in the first place, and especially by the time the book wrapped up, I think all the true blue Muppet fans saw that I was right with them. You know, and I knew, you know, I know the Muppets, and you know, I know what I'm doing, and I know how a Muppet story should go. And so by the time this thing wrapped up, everybody was like, you know, the ending was really kind of almost a not ending, but it was the most Muppety ending that we've seen thus far. So you know, and that was what I wanted to do. I was just looking for an excuse to draw all the Muppet monsters, you know, to see them all on one page. And to write, you know, Sir Carl, the big mean dwarf eater. So
yeah,
I was waiting for that. I said, you know what we're going to do at the end of this book? We're going to eat all of our characters. We're going to destroy all of our locations, and we're going to throw a lot of penguins in the air.
Perfect. I can't think of any better way to end the series. So, so one thing you told us before was you originally wanted Beard, the character from the Jim Henson Hour, to be one of the dwarfs. What happened?
I had a bunch of characters from the Jim Henson Hour. You know, I had Beard ended up being the seventh dwarf just because I like the way he looks. Not that he has much personality in the Jim Henson Hour. I was scrutinizing, going, that's easy enough to write, you know. And I spent a lot of time on him, and then I had to cut him out and replace him with Ralph. Who I like Ralph, so you know it's fun. I just wanted to do somebody more, you know, a little bit more obscure.
Sure.
And then we had originally in the fourth issue, when all the monsters show up and start eating everybody. Sweetums had switched to the good side, so instead of having him switch back and be a bad guy, originally I had Godzilla eat him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was the only Muppet big enough to swallow Sweetums. So, but I couldn't use Godzilla, and I couldn't use a lot of the. I was going to use Digit and a lot of solid foam in the audition scene, but I couldn't use any of them, and so I had like a bunch of little things last minute that I had to cut out, and. My biggest bit of disappointment, though, was at the end of issue 3 when Piggy shows up on the dragon. It was supposed to be the LaTroy dragon.
Oh.
And then they said I couldn't do that, and I said, all right. And it's the dragon from the Gorgon, the Ultra Gorgon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they wouldn't let me do that either. And I was like, all right, it's just a random Muppet dragon then. You know what I said?
Well, it was a nice try.
I know.
It was a nice try. So if you had trouble with the Jim Henson Hour characters, Spamela was one of your main
Muppets
characters.
Tonight.
So there was no difference between Muppets Tonight characters and Jim Henson Hour?
Apparently Muppets Tonight was included in whatever deal they made, and the Jim Henson Hour was not. So, I mean, I don't completely get all of the stuff. I mean, because at some point, I was using Senor Baffy, the blind knife thrower.
Okay. It's obscure.
Yeah, very obscure.
Yeah.
So, oops, sorry.
That's okay.
So I had him. Originally, I had a scene with him where he was auditioning. He was throwing knives at the Electric Mayhem, and they were like, "This is a music audition," you know, like, and he was just throw, and they made me cut him out, and I was like, "But he was on the Muppet Show," and I think they just read his name and they didn't know who he was,
Oh.
and they told me no, or there's a really bizarre thing with who they're allowed to use because he was from the Muppet Show. So I got confused, but at a certain point I just stopped asking questions because I was tired of fighting. I was like, all right, whoever I can use, I'll use.
Right.
But yeah, the Muppets Tonight characters seemed fair game, and. You know, there's some obscure references to Ernst Stavros Grouper, and originally Behemoth had a little bit of a bigger part besides eating people at the end.
Yeah.
And all that stuff got to stay in. So,
right.
So I mean, I love Muppets Tonight. The first, few episodes were unfortunately terrible, and then people tuned out before it got really good. Basically, when they took the leash off Bill Beretta and let him do, what he was doing.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that show didn't go longer because that's some of that stuff's like my favorite. I mean, what was the game show with Carl? I always forget. It was.
I have no idea.
You know what he said when he would eat the kitty or he'd eat the dog? He's like, if you don't get it right, Carl the big mean bunny is gonna come and eat the dog. And they'd be like, oh, I don't know the answer, and then the animal would get eaten. Come on, what is this? You're from Tough Pigs?
I'm awful when it comes to Muppets Tonight.
Take the microphone. Let me interview you. So.
Oh man, that was a big fail on my part. We'll edit this out.
Oh, it's Quick Wits. Quick Wits. That was the sketch. Quick Wits.
Quick Wits?
Yeah. Well, apparently it was only on in Europe, but I have the Europe version, so I've seen all that stuff. That's my favorite.
Awesome. So, going back to Spamela, so what made you choose to use her as one of your main characters? We haven't seen much of her at all on TV or in any of the comics, anything like that. There's not much of a character there yet.
Well, two reasons. Reason one was I figured if Disney did this as a movie, the Snow White character would be played by a human being. So to me, she was just, she wasn't the part anybody cares about. You care about the queen, you care about the dwarves. She was kind of a boring part. And I didn't want to give Piggy the boring part. I wanted to give her a good part. And she was better as the evil queen, being jealous anyway. It fit more with her character. So so Spamela Hamderson kind of being relatively indescript fits more that, okay, the human character who's relatively indescript, they're just famous and they're the character, And then the second thing was, as soon as I saw Spamela on Muppets Tonight, I said, why aren't you using Spamela as the modern Annie Sue? Because, Piggy was just so jealous of Annie Sue, and Annie Sue was just kind of cute and nice. Spamela's actually hot. What's more to be jealous of than Spamela, who's like the only hot Muppet to ever been made? I said there's plenty of reasons for Piggy to be really jealous of Spamela.
Sure.
And I had actually put together a pitch before Muppet Snow White for Muppet Bachelorette, which started with Spamela as the Bachelorette character, and when she does her first round of cuts, Crazy Harry blows her up, and she says it's been a blast, and he just and blows her off the balcony, and then they have to replace her with Piggy last minute.
Oh, okay.
And all the bachelors are really upset because they were expecting Spamela and now they get Piggy.
Oh, that's great.
So when it came time to do Snow White, I was like, Spamela, perfect.
Sure.
So that was my logic, and I think it's sound.
Sure. So then at the same time, Kermit had a really small role in your book.
Well, to be quite honest.
Please be honest.
I love the Muppets, and I love Kermit, but I love all the other Muppets a lot more than Kermit. I mean, Kermit's great, and Kermit was great when he was the everyman on the Muppet Show, but unfortunately, I think there's been a little bit of a push for Kermit to be a little bit more like Mickey Mouse since Disney's gotten a hold of it. They want him to be a little bit more even-tempered. Whereas he was always just kind of regular, and if a situation was unreasonable, he was like, this is unreasonable, and he would freak out. And nowadays it's more like, oh, the situation's unreasonable, but it's okay, and I don't like It's Okay Kermit. I like Everyman Kermit.
Right.
I was a little fearful that they might make me write him a little bit more reasonable Kermit, and I didn't want to have reasonable Kermit floating around in my book. So I gave him, and plus, I mean, it made sense for him to be the prince, and I didn't really want to add any more part for the prince because there was no good way of doing that and making him any more interesting. He was a prince, he's a handsome prince,
Sure.
There's really nothing interesting to do there, but it made sense for him to be the object of Piggy's, upsettedness,
right,
and all that. So, I mean, it was a fitting part for him, and really, at the end of the day, I like all the other Muppets so much better.
Right.
The book was called Snow White and the Electric Mayhem. And that should show you where I'm at,
Right.
That's who I wanted to write, and it was amazing when I finally sat down to do it, and I started going through the characters. I was like, oh my God! It's like, this is amazing. I said, Janice is totally happy. I said, Zoot is totally sleepy.
Yeah.
Dr. Teeth is Doc.
It's in his
I
name.
Said,
yeah.
And I said, and I saw a few Muppet sites, and it might have been Tough Pigs or Muppet Mindset, had said they didn't know about Floyd as grumpy.
I think that was
Dude,
us, yeah.
Floyd is grumpy.
You think he's grumpy?
He's sarcastic. That's grumpy. He's
All right.
always been sarcastic.
All right.
Everything, you got to watch the puppy, Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
Puppy shoved it in a drawer. Floyd just, yeah, there you go, and walks away. He is grumpy, man.
Okay.
He was always been
totally
sarcastic.
Buy that. I'll totally buy that.
So, like, if you go back, he was the sarcastic one. He was the one where they would give, like, a thing, and he'd be like, oh, man, this sucks, you know?
Yeah.
He was the guy who, like, had the negative commentary. Everybody else was kind of groovy, but Floyd was like, oh, man, that's
Right.
lame, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it fits. I was like, what? Go rewatch shows. So I felt good about it, and you know, an animal would have been a good dopey, but I thought it'd just be funnier to have him sneezing.
Sure.
Achoo! You know, it's just really funny to me.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you work on another Muppet comic really soon.
You know, thanks for reading the book, and thanks to everybody out there who read the book and reviewing the book and saying such nice things about it. I was really just so flattered. My goal was to be the Fairy Tales book to beat. That all the fan sites, the people who really like the Muppets, were saying this is the book.
Well, I think you accomplished
I feel
that
good
one.
about
Yeah.
it, man. It's great. Thanks a lot.
So, thank you.